Hey, welcome. So today, we're digging into a brand new executive order that makes a connection you probably weren't expecting. It argues that the timber industry is absolutely essential for national security. How on earth does that work? Well, let's break it down.
I know, it sounds like a trick question, right? But that idea is the absolute heart of this new directive. And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly how the White House is making that case, connecting the 2x4s in your walls to national defense.
All right, so first things first, let's get our bearings and figure out what exactly we're talking about here. What is this new order, and what kind of power does it actually have?
Okay, the document at the center of all of this is Executive Order 14223. It was signed on March 1st, 2025. And this one piece of paper is what kicks off this entire fascinating process we're about to explore.
And just as a quick refresher, an executive order is a really powerful tool. It's basically a formal command from the president that carries the full force of law, and it's used to direct how the federal government operates.
Now, right up front, the order makes a simple but really important distinction. When it says timber, it's talking about raw wood, right from the tree. But lumber is the finished product, the stuff that's been processed, milled, and cut. This little detail is going to be key to understanding everything else.
Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's get into the why. This is the core justification for the entire order. Why is the administration all of a sudden framing wood products as a matter of national security?
And this quote, pulled straight from Section 1 of the order, is the whole argument in a nutshell. The administration is officially stating that the wood industry isn't just about building houses. Nope. They're saying it's fundamental to the country's strength, its security, and its ability to bounce back from, well, anything. And to back that claim up, the order drops this pretty surprising number. It says the U.S. has the domestic capacity to supply a whopping 95% of all the softwood lumber it needs. Think about that. The ability to be almost totally self-sufficient is already there.
But here's the twist, the paradox that this whole order is built around. Even with that massive 95% capacity, the U.S. has actually been a net importer of lumber since 2016. We're buying more than we sell. And that is the central problem this whole thing is trying to figure out.
So where does national defense really fit into all this? Well, this figure is huge. According to the executive order, the U.S. military spends over $10 billion on construction projects every single year.
And you can really see that dependency here. It's not just for things like traditional barracks. The military is also pouring money into innovative new materials like cross-laminated timber. The order's argument is simple. To support these massive defense needs, you have to have a strong, reliable domestic lumber industry. It's just non-negotiable.
So we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. And honestly, this is where it gets really interesting. What tool does this order actually use to tackle this situation?
The entire order hinges on this one thing, a Section 232 investigation. It's a powerful tool from a law that's been on the books since 1962, and it gives the president the power to restrict imports if, and this is the key part, an investigation finds that those imports are a threat to our national security.
And this investigation isn't just some vague fishing expedition. The order is super specific. It tells the Secretary of Commerce to assess these 6 factors. So they're going to look at everything from U.S. demand and what we can produce, to the impact of foreign competition and subsidies, and even whether it's realistic to think we can ramp up our own capacity. It's a top-to-bottom review.
All right, let's get to the final piece of this puzzle. What happens now? Now that this investigation is officially underway, what's the timeline look like, and what are the possible outcomes here?
Well, the clock is officially ticking. The order was signed on March 1st, and it gives the Secretary of Commerce a hard deadline, 270 days. They have that long to conduct the investigation and get a full report back to the president, and that puts the deadline squarely on November 26th of this year.
And that final report has to deliver on 3 big things. First, it's got to answer the main question. Are lumber imports actually a national security threat? Yes or no? Second, it needs to recommend specific actions. And third, it should give some broader ideas on how to make the whole U.S. supply chain stronger.
So what could those actions actually look like? Well, the possibilities are pretty wide-ranging. It could mean tough measures, like putting new tariffs on imports, or setting quotas to limit how much can come in. Or it could go the other way, with supportive actions, like creating new incentives for American producers, or making strategic government investments to boost the industry.
Look, if you take away just one thing today, let it be this. This executive order is using a powerful national security law, Section 232, as a lever to investigate what is, at its core, an issue of economic competition in the wood industry. That's the whole ballgame right there.
And this whole situation really leaves us with a fascinating and pretty profound question to chew on. At what point does an economic policy actually become a national security strategy? This order draws a very clear line in the sand, and it makes you wonder where that line will be drawn next.